All right, so today we are taking a deep dive into James Rickards' Aftermath. 7 Secrets of Wealth Preservation in the Coming Chaos.
Oh, yeah, this will be good.
It's a pretty dense book,
Mm-hmm.
but it's packed with these really interesting insights into how vulnerable our financial systems might be.
Yeah, and what we can all do to prepare.
Exactly.
Buckle up, though.
Yeah.
Rickards does not hold back.
No, he does not.
One of the first things that really jumps out, he kind of throws a curveball right off the bat. He challenges this whole idea that free trade is always the best policy.
Oh, yeah, I remember this.
He argues that, periods of American prosperity, they've often coincided with protectionism and mercantilism.
Mercantilism.
Yeah, isn't that the system where countries try to maximize their own wealth?
Yeah, even at the expense of others.
Yeah.
It's not exactly the most popular idea in economics these days.
No, it's not.
But Rickards makes this compelling case.
He does.
He uses historical examples.
Mm-hmm.
He points to Alexander Hamilton, founding father.
Right. Who used tariffs to protect America's young industries.
No, okay.
And even Ronald Reagan, he used tariffs on Japanese cars.
Right.
Which, get this, actually encouraged Japanese companies to build factories here in the U.S.
Wow. So is he suggesting that we should all become economic isolationists?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, that seems pretty extreme.
Yeah.
But what's fascinating here is that he uses these examples
Okay.
to highlight the potential downsides of unfettered free trade,
Okay.
especially when it leads to these constant trade deficits like the U.S. has now.
Right.
He argues that these deficits create a major vulnerability
Okay.
because they could eventually lead to a loss of confidence in the U.S. dollar.
Okay. So that's a pretty unsettling thought. But where does behavioral economics fit into all of this?
Right.
Isn't that more about psychology than global finance?
Well, that's what makes his analysis so interesting. He argues that behavioral economics is actually being used to manipulate investors, often without them even realizing it.
Okay, now I really need an example because that sounds a little conspiratorial.
Well, take 401k.
Okay.
They're designed to help people save for retirement.
Right.
But he points out that they often use these subtle psychological nudges
Okay.
to encourage people to invest more, sometimes more than they can actually afford,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that.
like when they automatically enroll you
Right.
and you have to opt out.
Opt out instead of opt in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he argues that these nudges,
Yeah.
while, maybe well-intentioned,
Mm-hmm.
they're contributing to a bubble in asset prices.
Okay.
Because if everyone's being nudged to invest more, regardless of their actual financial situation, it pushes prices up, right?
Right.
Artificially. And what goes up?
Must come down. So is he saying that a crash is inevitable?
He definitely thinks a major correction is coming,
Okay.
and soon.
All right.
And he's pretty skeptical of these passive investing strategies.
The set it and forget it approach
Yeah.
that a lot of people rely on. Okay, so what's the alternative? Should we all become day traders?
He argues that active investors,
Okay.
those who are closely monitoring your portfolios,
Mm-hmm.
making adjustments based on market conditions, they'll be better positioned to weather the storm.
That makes sense. This all sounds pretty doom and gloom, though.
Yeah.
Is he predicting a full-blown economic apocalypse?
No, not quite.
Okay.
He doesn't think it'll be the end of the world.
Okay.
But he does think the financial landscape will be radically different after this crisis.
Okay.
And that's where his 7 secrets of wealth preservation come in.
All right.
Like these practical strategies to help you protect your assets and even thrive in this new environment.
Well, that's a bit of a relief. What really struck me is that Rickards has this unique background that most financial authors don't have. He actually worked with the CIA.
That's right.
On projects related to financial warfare.
It definitely adds a layer of intrigue to his analysis.
Yeah.
He even shares some pretty fascinating insights into the inner workings of the CIA.
Oh, yeah.
Their almost fanatical emphasis on security and compartmentalization.
Yeah, he talks about how even just casual conversations can be seen as potential security risks.
Right.
He even has this anecdote about the CIA Starbucks.
Oh, yeah.
Where
it's frowned upon to chat with strangers in line.
Yeah.
It's almost like stepping into a spy novel.
Totally.
He calls this social engineering, the art of manipulating people to reveal information, often without them realizing it.
Whoa. So even grabbing a latte could be dangerous in the world of espionage.
Well, you never know who might be listening.
True.
Or what information they might be trying to glean.
That's wild. And speaking of espionage, Rickards contrasts this hyper-modern world of digital spying with some of the more old-school exhibits at the CIA museum, right?
Yeah, yeah. We're talking the Enigma machine from World War II,
Oh, wow.
the legendary code-breaking device,
Right.
and even a kiss of death lipstick gun.
Wow, okay. Now I have to see that. But why bring up these old school gadgets in a book about modern financial threats?
Yeah.
What's the connection?
He argues that even with all of our advanced technology,
Mm-hmm.
intelligence agencies are actually reverting to some of these older, non-digital methods
Really?
for certain tasks,
Okay.
bringing back techniques like brush passes and dead drops,
Wow.
which were common during the Cold War.
Wait, why would they do that? Isn't that like going back to the Stone Age?
It might seem counterintuitive, but even the most sophisticated digital systems
Right.
can be hacked.
True.
So for truly sensitive information, sometimes the old ways are the most secure.
Wow, that's a pretty eye-opening thought. So even the CIA is worried about the vulnerabilities of the digital world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Rickards suggests that we should be too.
Okay. Now you've got me thinking. If even the CIA is going old school for security,
Right.
what does that mean for, like, the average person trying to protect their data and their finances in this digital age?
That's a great question, and one that his book really makes us confront. It suggests that maybe we've become a little too reliant on technology,
Right.
assuming it's more secure than it actually
It's
is.
like we've built this incredibly complex, interconnected system, but maybe we've forgotten about some of the basic principles of security that were so important in the past.
Exactly. And that vulnerability, the potential for things to go wrong, is a theme that kind of runs throughout his book. It touches on everything from the global economy to our own personal finances.
And it's not just about, like, financial vulnerability either, right? This idea of hidden risks and unexpected consequences, it applies to so many aspects of our lives.
Absolutely. And that's where his insights into espionage become particularly relevant. Because in the world of intelligence, you're constantly dealing with deception, hidden agendas, and the potential for things to go terribly wrong.
Yeah, and that's why organizations like the NCIX, the National Counterintelligence Executive, they're so important. They're the ones tasked with hunting down spies and moles, both foreign and domestic. Talk about a high-stakes job.
Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart.
No.
And he paints this vivid picture of this wilderness of mirrors where double agents and triple agents operate,
Oh, wow.
where nothing is quite as it seems.
Right.
It's this world of intrigue, betrayal, and constantly shifting alliances.
And that same kind of strategic thinking, that ability to see through the fog of information and anticipate potential threats, is what Rickards argues we all need to cultivate in today's world.
Exactly. Because whether we're talking about financial markets, cybersecurity, or even just navigating the complexities of daily life, that ability to identify vulnerabilities and adapt to changing circumstances is becoming increasingly crucial.
So while Rickards might not be offering us a step-by-step guide to surviving the apocalypse, he's definitely giving us a crash course in how to think critically, assess risks, and make smarter decisions in a world that's becoming more complex and unpredictable by the day.
Absolutely, and that's what makes his book so valuable. It's not just about predicting the future. It's about equipping you with the tools and the mindset to navigate whatever the future may hold. It's like he's saying we need to develop our own, like, internal radar.
Yeah.
For spotting danger signs, whether it's, a shady investment scheme or a phishing email trying to steal your data.
It's almost like we need to become our own, like, personal counterintelligence agents.
All right.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the potential for future chaos.
Right.
But what about Rickards' actual strategies for wealth preservation?
Yeah.
What are some of these 7 secrets he keeps mentioning?
Well, he dives into a lot of detail in the book, but one key principle that really stood out to me is this idea of diversification.
Okay.
And he's not just talking about diversifying your investment portfolio.
So it's more than just like, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. He argues that we need to diversify across asset classes, currencies, and even geographies.
Oh, wow.
He believes that the traditional, like, 60-40 stock bond portfolio,
Right.
it won't cut it in the coming crisis.
So stocks, bonds, gold, real estate, maybe even some Bitcoin.
He even suggests holding some physical cash outside of the banking system,
Holy!
just in case things get really hairy.
Now, that's interesting because most financial advisors would say holding a lot of cash is a bad idea because of inflation. Right.
Right. But he argues that in a severe crisis, liquidity, The ability to access your money quickly and easily, it becomes paramount.
Okay.
He's basically saying that in extreme scenarios, cash is king.
So it's like having an emergency fund, but on a much larger scale.
Exactly. And this ties back to his whole point about vulnerability. He's saying that relying too heavily on any one system, whether it's the banking system, the stock market, or even the US dollar, it could leave you exposed if that system fails.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So diversification is one secret. What's another one that listeners should be aware of?
Well, he also talks about the importance of owning tangible assets.
Okay.
Things you can hold in your hand.
Okay.
Like precious metals, fine art, even productive land.
So is he suggesting we all become farmers and art collectors?
Well, not necessarily, but he does make a compelling case for owning assets that have intrinsic value.
Okay.
Things that will retain their worth even if the financial system goes haywire. Because during times of crisis, people often turn to tangible assets as a store of value.
Yeah, I can see that. It's like the old saying, buy land, they're not making any more of it.
Exactly. And this ties back to the idea of thinking long-term, of looking beyond the short-term fluctuations of the market.
Right.
And considering what will hold its value over time.
It's like building a fortress that can withstand the storms that might be coming. Okay, so diversification, tangible assets. Any other secrets you found particularly insightful?
Another key takeaway is the importance of understanding and navigating the political landscape.
Okay.
He argues that political decisions often have a profound impact on the economy.
Right.
And that those who are aware of the political undercurrents will be better positioned to anticipate and adapt to change.
So are you saying we all need to become political junkies?
Well, not necessarily, but he does emphasize the importance of being informed about major policy decisions, geopolitical events, and even just the general mood of the electorate.
I guess it's like knowing which way the wind is blowing so you can adjust your sails accordingly.
Exactly. And this ties back to his earlier point about mercantilism.
Right.
He argues that we're entering this new era of great power competition, and that understanding the dynamics of this competition is crucial for making sound financial decisions.
So it's not just about economics anymore. It's about geopolitics, global power struggles, and understanding how all of these forces are intertwined.
Precisely. And this is where his background in intelligence and financial warfare really comes into play.
Right.
He's able to connect the dots between seemingly disparate events and reveal the underlying patterns that are shaping the world.
It's like he's giving us a glimpse behind the curtain, showing us the puppet strings that are controlling the global economy.
And that awareness, that ability to see the bigger picture, is what he believes will give you a decisive advantage in navigating the challenges ahead.
Okay, so we've got diversification, tangible assets, and political awareness. Are we starting to see a theme here?
Absolutely. What all these strategies have in common is a focus on resilience, on building a financial foundation that can withstand shocks and disruptions. It's about taking a proactive approach to protecting your wealth and your future.
It's like building a financial immune system that can fight off whatever economic viruses might be coming our way.
That's a great analogy. And just like a healthy immune system requires a multifaceted approach.
Right.
He argues that true wealth preservation involves diversifying your assets, understanding political risks, and developing a deep understanding of how the global financial system really works.
So it's not just about picking the right stocks or finding the next hot investment.
It's about developing a holistic strategy.
Okay.
That takes into account a wide range of factors, from economic trends to geopolitical events, to the psychological biases that can lead investors astray.
It's like he's saying we need to become financial black belts, able to defend ourselves against any attack.
Exactly. And that level of preparedness, that ability to anticipate and adapt to change, is what he believes will separate the winners from the losers in the coming years.
You know, what's fascinating to me is how he connects these financial strategies back to his experiences with the CIA. It's like he's saying that the same principles of vigilance, adaptability, and strategic thinking that apply to espionage also apply to navigating the complexities of the financial world.
That's a great point. And it makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
Both espionage and finance involve dealing with incomplete information.
Right.
Assessing risks.
Yeah.
And making decisions under pressure.
It's like you're playing a high-stakes game of chess, where one wrong move could cost you everything.
And just like in chess, the key to winning is not just reacting to your opponent's moves,
Right.
but anticipating them, developing a strategy, and being prepared to adjust your plan as the game unfolds.
Okay, so Rickards has given us a lot to think about in terms of financial strategies.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to this idea of vulnerability for a moment.
Okay.
We've talked about the vulnerability of the financial system,
Right.
the vulnerability of our personal data.
Yeah.
But isn't there also a vulnerability in human nature itself?
That's a really insightful observation.
Yeah.
And you're right. He does touch on this idea, particularly when he talks about behavioral economics.
Right. Because even if we have the best financial plan in the world, we can still be susceptible to our own biases, our own fears and greed, which can lead us to make irrational decisions.
Absolutely. He talks about how fear and greed can drive market bubbles and crashes.
Right.
How our emotions can cloud our judgment and lead us to make impulsive choices that we later regret.
And this ties back to his point about how behavioral economics can be used to manipulate investors, right?
Right.
Because if someone understands our psychological weaknesses, they can exploit them to their advantage.
Exactly. And this is where his message about vigilance and critical thinking becomes especially important.
Okay.
He's not just urging us to be wary of economic or political threats,
Right.
but also to be aware of our own internal vulnerabilities, our own tendencies towards fear, greed, and herd mentality.
It's like we need to develop a healthy skepticism, not just towards the information we're bombarded with, but also towards our own gut reactions and emotional impulses.
He's basically saying that the most dangerous enemy we face might be ourselves.
Okay, now that's a sobering thought. So how do we protect ourselves from our own worst instincts? What kind of mental defenses do we need to build?
Well, he suggests developing a strong sense of self-awareness.
Okay.
Understanding our own strengths and weaknesses, and learning to recognize the emotional triggers that can lead us to make bad decisions.
So it's like emotional intelligence meets financial literacy.
That's a great way to put it. And this ties back to the idea of diversification.
Okay.
Just as we need to diversify our assets,
Yeah.
we also need to diversify our sources of information and our perspectives.
So don't just rely on one financial guru or one news source.
Exactly. He encourages us to seek out diverse viewpoints,
Okay.
to challenge our assumptions, and to be willing to change our minds when presented with new information.
It's about being open to learning, but also being discerning, right? Knowing how to filter the signal from the noise.
Exactly. And this is where critical thinking skills become essential.
Okay.
He argues that in a world of information overload, the ability to evaluate information critically, to separate fact from fiction, is more important than ever.
Because if we're not careful, we can easily be swayed by propaganda, misinformation, or even just our own emotional biases.
He's basically saying that we need to become our own fact checkers, our own BS detectors.
Okay, so we've got diversification of assets,
Right.
diversification of information, and developing our critical thinking skills. Are we starting to see a pattern here?
Absolutely. What all these strategies have in common is a focus on empowerment,
Okay.
on taking control of our own financial destinies, rather than blindly following the crowd or relying on experts to tell us what to do.
It's about becoming financially sovereign, in a sense.
Exactly. And this idea of financial sovereignty is closely linked to his earlier point about political awareness. He argues that true financial independence requires a deep understanding of how the political system works.
Right.
And how it influences the economy.
So it's not just about managing our own money.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the forces that shape the financial landscape, the political decisions, the global power struggles, all of it.
Precisely. And this is where his book goes beyond traditional personal finance advice. He's not just giving us tips on budgeting or investing.
Right.
He's providing a framework for understanding the complexities of the world
Okay.
and making informed decisions that align with our values and our long-term goals.
It's like he's giving us a roadmap to navigate this wilderness of mirrors he keeps talking about, this world of deception, hidden agendas, and constantly shifting realities.
And he's urging us to develop the mental agility and the strategic thinking skills that are necessary to thrive in this environment.
Okay, so Rickards has given us a lot to think about. From diversifying our assets, to understanding the political landscape, to developing our critical thinking skills. But what about this whole idea of espionage?
Yeah.
How does that fit into the bigger picture? I mean, we're not all going to become spies, are we?
Of course not. But what's fascinating is how he uses his experiences with the CIA to illustrate these broader principles about risk, security, and the importance of thinking strategically.
It's like he's saying that the same mental models that spies use to operate in a world of shadows can also be applied to navigating the complexities of the financial world, right?
Exactly. Because both espionage and finance involve dealing with incomplete information, assessing risks, and making decisions under pressure.
And it's all about identifying vulnerabilities both in your opponents and in yourself.
He's basically saying that we need to develop our own internal counterintelligence capabilities.
Okay.
The ability to spot potential threats, to protect ourselves from manipulation, and to make decisions that are aligned with our own best interests.
So, like, we need to become our own personal security advisors.
Exactly. And just like a good security advisor, we need to be vigilant, adaptable, and always one step ahead of the game.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of heavy stuff today, from potential economic collapse to the shadowy world of espionage.
Right.
But I want to end on a more positive note.
Okay.
Despite all the risks and uncertainties, Rickards seems to believe that there's still hope for the future. Right.
Absolutely. He's not a doom and gloom prophet predicting the end of the world. He's actually quite optimistic about human ingenuity.
Yeah.
And our ability to adapt and overcome challenges.
And he seems to believe that by taking a proactive approach, by educating ourselves, by developing the right mindset and skills, we can not only weather the storms that are coming, but actually thrive in this new environment.
Exactly. He's basically saying that the future is what we make it.
Yeah.
And that those who are prepared, adaptable, and willing to think outside the box will be the ones who write the next chapter of history.
You know, what's really inspiring about his message is that it's not just about protecting ourselves.
Right.
It's about empowering ourselves, about taking control of our own destinies and shaping the future we want to see.
And that's a message that resonates far beyond the realm of finance and economics. It's a message about human agency, about the power of individual choice, and about the enduring belief that we are not simply passive victims of circumstance, but active creators of our own reality.
And that's what makes this deep dive so valuable. It's not just about learning specific financial strategies.
Right.
It's about developing a mindset, a way of thinking that'll empower us to navigate the complexities of the world and create a future that is more resilient, more prosperous, and more aligned with our values.
Absolutely. And that's why I think his book is a must-read for anyone who is serious about taking control of their financial future and building a life of true freedom and abundance.
So if even the CIA is like dusting off their typewriters and relearning how to do a dead drop, shouldn't we be rethinking our reliance on digital everything?
Right.
I mean, what does that say about the security of our online banking, our personal data, our entire digital lives?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Rickards doesn't really offer like a simple solution.
Right.
But he does make this compelling case for diversifying our approach to security.
Okay.
Just like we diversify our investments,
Right.
we should diversify the ways we protect our information.
So not putting all our cybersecurity eggs in the digital basket, but what does that even look like for the average person?
It starts with awareness.
Okay.
Rickards highlights the importance of understanding just how vulnerable our digital lives really are. Strong passwords, two-factor authentication, being cautious about what we click on and download.
Right.
These are all essential steps.
But it sounds like he's suggesting we need to go a step further.
He is.
Okay.
He actually advocates for keeping some financial records offline.
Okay.
In a safe place.
Right.
And even using physical cash.
Oh, wow.
For some transactions.
Okay.
Now, I know that might sound a little extreme to some people.
Yeah, like going back to the Stone Age.
Right.
Yeah, I can see how some folks might be resistant to that.
But remember, his whole thesis is about preparing for these potential disruptions.
Right.
For scenarios where the systems we rely on might not be available.
Right.
And in those situations,
yeah,
having some resources outside the digital realm could be invaluable.
It's like having a backup generator for your finances in case the power grid goes down.
Exactly.
So,
it's about having options.
Right.
Having a plan B and not being entirely dependent on systems that could be compromised or disrupted.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So we've got financial diversification, tangible assets, political awareness, digital security, and even a bit of old school spycraft thrown in for good measure.
Yeah.
It's a lot to take in.
It is a lot.
But if we step back and look at all these pieces together, what emerges is a picture of resilience, of preparedness, of building a life that can withstand the shocks and disruptions that might be coming our way.
Exactly.
It's like Rickards is giving us a toolkit for navigating uncertainty, for building a future that is not just secure,
right,
but truly anti-fragile.
It's not about retreating from the world,
right,
but about engaging with it in a more conscious, more strategic way.
Yeah, and that's what makes his book so valuable.
Absolutely.
It's not just a financial survival guide. It's a call to action, an invitation to become more aware, more informed, and more empowered to shape our own destiny.
I like that.
So for our listeners who are feeling a little overwhelmed by all this, what's the one key takeaway they should really hold on to?
I think it's this. Don't panic, but do prepare.
Okay.
Start by educating yourself.
Okay.
Read Rickards' book. Explore other resources. Have conversations with people you trust.
And then most importantly, take action.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even small steps can make a big difference.
Right.
Start diversifying your assets. Strengthen your digital security.
Yep.
Become more politically aware.
It's about building good habits.
Yeah.
Developing a resilient mindset and taking ownership of your future.
And remember, it's not about predicting the future.
Right.
It's about being prepared for a range of possibilities.
Yeah.
As Rickards himself says, the best way to predict the future is to create it.
So to wrap things up, if you're looking to delve deeper into these ideas and develop your own strategies for navigating this wilderness of mirrors we live in, we highly recommend checking out James Rickards' Aftermath.
It's a good one.
It's a thought-provoking read that will challenge your assumptions and give you a new perspective on the world.
I think so.
And as always, we encourage you to continue exploring, to question, to connect the dots, and to share your own insights and perspectives.
Because the best deep dives are the ones that spark ongoing conversations.
Yeah.
And a shared pursuit of knowledge.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay resilient.
CI.